silence. God of hunting and war, divine kingship, beast our. God of craftsmen, builders, makers, workers, among the hidden one, ram-headed son of the sun, priestess of Hathor, all kneel before queen of the setting sun.
In ancient Egypt, there were as many duties and rituals as there were priests, but the high-ranking clergy participated daily in two, which were considered of utmost importance: lighting the fire and drawing the bolt. In the fire ritual, the priest would gather before dawn in a sacred room close to the god's shrine and reenact the first appearance of the sun by lighting a fire in a brazier. The boat of the sun god was thought to pass through the underworld at night, where it was threatened by the serpent Apophis. Rituals were often observed to help the sun god navigate his nightly trip safely, and defeat Apophis, and lighting the morning fire was among these. Joshua J. Mark, World History Encyclopedia.
Tremaine inhaled the tang of the salt air, feeling better in that moment than he had ever felt in his life. He turned his attention once more to his brother. Antiochus was enthralled with the blonde beauty. To Tremaine, it was inexplicable how he could be interested in any woman other than the dusky-skinned woman. She was a pale, washed-out caricature compared to the dark, mysterious beauty of the woman who had showed him her aura. Their mother was among those who arrived to treat the women and children from the slave ship. He guided the young woman to a boulder, encouraging her to sit down so his mother could examine her ankles. Kedrick came over with Antiochus and the blonde beauty. They succeeded in communicating with one another, and he was relieved when he saw the look of calmness on his mother's face. If the dusky beauty was not going to survive her injuries, he would see it on her face. While they conferred and treated the injury, his attention returned to his uncle.
Deity will always see to the needs of Estolia,
Rialto said quietly. Tremaine looked again at the dark woman who would in time take his soul into her keeping. Deity was as close to his people now as any prior generation. The promises of deity would always be available to each of the children of Zacharias now and in the future, until time ceased to be time, if they did not forget to keep the promise of Zacharias. Liarana settled next to Shania, taking her hand.
You are well?
She searched Shania's eyes anxiously, afraid she would hear her friend was injured badly.
Yes, lady, I am well. The injuries are not bad.
Shania looked at the man who had hardly left Liarana's side.
He is smitten.
He is a prince,
she said. Once, before misfortune so cruelly visited her, she would have thought herself a good mate for a prince. Now, however, it seemed absurd to dream. He might look at her in a yearning way, but this did not mean he saw her as a mate. Shania looked at his twin for only a moment before saying,
His brother must also be a prince. Do you think it is possible?
She broke off and blushed. After a moment she lifted her chin and said,
I am and always will be yours, Liarana. I will serve you until the end of your life.
To Liarana, what seemed normal and acceptable before, was now abhorrent and appalling. Weeks in that stinking cargo hold, knowing she would have no freedom, that her life would be lived at the whim of another, gave her a great distaste for the concept of slavery. She would not allow Shania to live even one more day as a slave. Her voice was sharp when she said,
It is possible, and would bring me great happiness. I have always wanted your happiness above my own.
No prince would be interested in a slave anyway.
Shania dismissed. Before Liarana could tell Shania that she was no longer her slave, Kedrick came over, bowing slightly to her.
Are you and your friend able to ride some of our most gentle mounts? King Rolando extends his invitation for the two of you to stay in the palace.
Was the invitation a product of her earlier claim to be a priestess? She could not accept a privilege based on a lie.
I am not a priestess of Hathor.
Who you are has nothing to do with the invitation. Are you and your friend able to ride?
He repeated his question. Liarana looked at Shania.
My friend cannot ride by herself. I will be fine with any mount you can give me.
She repeated her words in their language so that Shania would know what she was saying.
Minha amiga não consegue cavalgar sozinha. Eu ficarei bem com qualquer montaria que você puder me dar.
Shania nodded gratefully. A dainty white mare was brought up to Liarana, and the other 2 white stallions were brought close as well. The twin that had enthralled Liarana from the beginning came up to her and helped her into the saddle. The other twin put Shania up on the stallion and then mounted behind her. The little mare was a delight to ride. She looked over at the twins and their gorgeous stallions. The 2 beasts were as well matched as the 2 men. The giant was a silent companion, riding his much larger black gelding. At first, she was focused more on the horseflesh and the 2 beautiful men, but after a time she noticed the land through which they were passing. It was rich and fertile. The people were all healthy and well-fed. They did not appear impoverished or unhappy. The contrast between these people and the residents of Izquierdo, the slave traders' home base, was stark. Where were they? Why didn't she know about this place?
Priestess of Hathor, all kneel before, Queen of the setting sun, Keeper of wisdom, the mark of Anubis, Jackal of hubris. Eye of Ra symbolizes land open to eternity.